OK. Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Je m'appelle Jennifer Dumoulin. Je suis la présidente, la ancienne présidente de l'Association des étudiants diplômés. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jennifer Dumoulin. I am the outgoing president of the Communications Graduate Students Association. Welcome to the last graduate students workshop series of the winter 2021 semester. Bienvenue à la dernière session de l'hiver 2021. J'aimerais passer le microphone à Maria Sherba, professeure dans le département de communication, pour introduire officiellement la session d'aujourd'hui. I'd like to officially pass the microphone to Professor Maria Sherba in the Department of Communications to officially open today's session. Alors, Maria, à vous.
Merci. Alors, bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à notre dernier atelier du semestre. Donc, le thème aujourd'hui est la mobilisation des connaissances, donc un sujet super important pour nous aider à réfléchir comment la recherche peut avoir des impacts significatifs et durables sur nos pratiques, sur notre société, et réfléchir aussi à notre rôle en tant que chercheur au sein de nos communautés. Alors, on est très heureux, très content aujourd'hui d'accueillir une de nos conseillères en mobilisation des connaissances, Marie-Ève Girard. Donc, merci encore d'avoir accepté l'invitation. Alors, juste introduire en anglais aussi. So, hi everyone. I hope everyone's keeping all right and managing. I guess managing with your full plates during this busy end of the semester. Welcome to our last workshop of the year. So the topic today is knowledge mobilization, a very important subject, and I hope that today's presentation and discussion will help you think about how research can have meaningful impacts on our practice and our society, and also think about our role as researchers in our communities. So we are very happy today to have with us Marie-Ève Girard. Thanks again for joining us today. So Marie-Ève is a knowledge mobilization advisor here at the University of Ottawa. And like Jennifer said at the beginning, feel free to put your questions, comments in the chat, and we'll also have some time for discussion as well at the end of the talk. So Marie-Ève, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. Merci à toutes et à tous. Merci à Jennifer, Meredith, Maria pour la présentation et pour l'opportunité d'être ici avec vous aujourd'hui. Just to let you know, my kids are at home with me, so you might sometimes hear weird noise. I told them to be careful, but you know, you never know. So I'm very excited to be here today to talk about knowledge mobilization, but first, I think I need to share my screen. Just a second. Oh, no, that's not the right one. Oh, is it? No, I don't think so. Sorry. I'm not used to Zoom as much as Teams. Let's do that again. Okay. Can you confirm that you can see a slideshow?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let me first take a minute to acknowledge my respect to the Algonquin people, who are the traditional guardians of the land that I'm currently on. I acknowledge their long-lasting relationship with this territory, which remain unceded. Alors, ma présentation se veut vraiment une introduction à la mobilisation des connaissances. J'espère qu'à la fin de ma présentation, vous comprendrez mieux ce qu'est la mobilisation des connaissances, pourquoi c'est important, quels sont les avantages de faire de la recherche dans un processus de co-création, aussi le rôle de l'Université d'Ottawa dans l'appui à la mobilisation des connaissances et aussi comment planifier des activités de mobilisation des connaissances et utiliser les ressources qui sont disponibles. Alors, before we start, I would like to do a quick survey and I'll ask Jennifer to pull up a poll. So it's about just to see a bit your level of knowledge about knowledge mobilization. So if you could just answer the little poll. So I can see that most people already are aware about what knowledge mobilization is. All right. I think most people have answered. Okay, thank you. It's just to give me an idea. So hopefully for the people who know about it, it will be more like a a deeper dive into it. And for the people who never heard of it, if I'm going too fast or it's not clear, please don't hesitate to ask questions. Thank you. Can you see the results, or it's just me? Okay, so everyone can see. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for that. So, what do we mean by knowledge mobilization? So knowledge mobilization is an umbrella term for a variety of activities that help researchers improve the social relevance and impact of their research. Sometimes it's about working hand in hand with the people who would benefit the most from your research so they can use the research to make better decisions. These people are often called knowledge users, and they can be anyone from kids to elderly professionals and practitioners, leaders, decision makers, media, communication experts, etc. So the activities you do with or for your knowledge users will depend on what you want them to do with your research results. But in general, it can go from doing knowledge synthesis, communicating with them through a variety of channels like the web, videos, podcasts, social media, webinars, or engaging them in a research co-creation process or a collaborative research process. One important thing to know is that knowledge mobilization has many different synonyms depending on the discipline that you're in. The most common ones are knowledge translation, knowledge transfer, knowledge exchange, and even commercialization to some extent. Knowledge mobilization is a term that is mostly used by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council in Canada, and also it's the term that we use at U Ottawa. So why is knowledge mobilization an important part of the research process? So because research is meant to benefit people and society, but a large quantity of research is underused and not quickly enough to improve policies, products, services, intervention, treatments, innovations, etc. And also one thing you should know is that in social sciences, only 82%, 82% of articles that are published are not even cited, which means that the research results are not really used. So if you don't want your hard work to stay unnoticed, using knowledge mobilization strategies will help getting your results to the people who can do something with it. Another driver to do knowledge mobilization comes from funding agencies. So in Canada, SUJET and CIHR require research teams to plan for their knowledge mobilization activities when writing their grant proposal, and will expect these activities to be executed, evaluated, and reported on. Je l'ai dit un peu plus tôt, la mobilisation des connaissances comporte une grande variété d'activités. Les IRSC ont divisé ces activités en deux catégories. Les activités de diffusion, de communication, de dissémination, souvent utilisées à la fin d'une subvention, mais pas seulement. Ces stratégies ont généralement pour objectif de rendre les résultats de la recherche accessibles et compréhensibles aux personnes qui peuvent en bénéficier. Les activités de co-création, de coproduction, de mobilisation ou d'engagement se définissent par une méthode par laquelle les utilisateurs de connaissances sont impliqués à travers l'ensemble du processus de la recherche et de la mobilisation des connaissances. Ces stratégies sont réputées pour favoriser une recherche plus pertinente pour les utilisateurs de connaissances et ainsi d'augmenter les chances que les résultats de la recherche soient utilisés. Among the end of grant or dissemination activities, you can also find a variety of activities such as publication, knowledge synthesis, reports, briefing notes, artistic performance, films, artistic events, tools, manuals, guides, guidelines, database, media, interviews, blog, e-newsletters, podcasts, and so on. And activities for co-creation, using a co-creation approach, we'll mostly use activities such as workshops, community of practices, steering committees or advisory committees, networking activities, working groups, and collaborative platforms. Lorsqu'il est question d'utiliser une approche de co-création des connaissances avec les utilisateurs de connaissances, on ne peut pas le faire n'importe comment. Il existe des principes fondateurs. Il faut faire preuve de rigueur scientifique afin que les résultats ne soient pas remis en cause par la participation active des utilisateurs de connaissances dans le processus de la recherche. Il faut établir des relations de réciprocité entre la communauté de recherche et la communauté des utilisateurs de connaissances afin que ces derniers ne se sentent pas seulement utilisés pour la recherche. Donc, pour ce faire, il est important que les deux parties s'entendent sur le rôle de chacun dans le processus et sur les processus d'échange tout au long de la recherche et de la mobilisation des connaissances. Il faut aussi que les connaissances soient accessibles et partagées tout au long du processus de la recherche. Il faut pas seulement faut que les utilisateurs aient l'impression qu'ils ont accès à la même information que les chercheurs. Puis, il est aussi recommandé que l'approche soit interdisciplinaire et enfin que la recherche réponde à des besoins identifiés par les utilisateurs de connaissances impliqués. So now about the benefits to do knowledge mobilization. So I've already covered some of the drivers for knowledge mobilization, but now I want to provide an overview of some of the benefits. So when you do knowledge mobilization, you provide access to evidence that can be used to find solutions to problems. It connects you with the people who needs your research and can potentially help you work together towards the same goal. It facilitates more timely evidence to practice or to policy change in some research areas. Evidence-based practices or policy create more efficient and more sustainable changes. It also maximizes the diffusion, dissemination, reach, use, and impact of your research. It maximizes the benefits of the investment in research on economy, culture, health, environment, and society. Understanding the knowledge mobilization process and planning process can help you obtain research funds because, like I mentioned, knowledge mobilization plans are now included in grant applications. And then finally, it can also facilitate academic promotion and if the practice of knowledge mobilization is reported and documented in the tenure and promotion dossier. So I think this covers the what, and next we will take a look at the support for knowledge mobilization that UOttawa is providing. But before we do that, I want to hear from you again. I don't know, Jen, if you could pull up the second poll. So the question for the second poll is about the value now that I've presented, if you understand the value. Are we sharing this?
The question is live right now, Amelia,
okay,
and once we close it, we can share the results.
So it seems like most people understand the value. I have one person to actually continue to convince, so I will continue doing that. So, all right. Okay, so my next slide. So I have another question for you. And now it's about more like what you know about the support for knowledge mobilization that is offered at UOttawa. So I don't know, oh, there you go. Another poll is coming up. Haha. I like it's getting there. Good. All right, so I think the next part will probably help understand how knowledge mobilization is valued a bit more at the University of Ottawa. Thank you for that, Jen. OK. So, je suis très fière de vous dire qu'on a travaillé très fort dans les 3 dernières années pour que la mobilisation des connaissances soit davantage valorisée à l'Université d'Ottawa. Il y a encore du travail à faire, mais il est important de noter que le plan stratégique Transformation 2030 de l'Université soutient des éléments importants de la mobilisation des connaissances à travers les piliers plus interconnectés, more connected, and plus influents, more impactful. Mais surtout, le plan stratégique de la recherche a un objectif qui est d'engager les partenaires et communautés locales, nationales et internationales dans des domaines d'intérêt mutuel et... Sorry. My son is coming in from outside. OK. Donc, d'engager les partenaires, les communautés locales, nationales et internationales dans des domaines d'intérêt mutuel afin d'augmenter l'impact de la recherche en favorisant son utilisation dans les politiques, les pratiques, les services et les produits. Donc, le cabinet du vice-recteur à la recherche a d'ailleurs développé une stratégie institutionnelle de mobilisation des connaissances et a créé l'unité Connexion Recherche, ainsi que mon poste de conseillère en mobilisation des connaissances pour répondre aux besoins grandissants des chercheurs et des étudiants en matière de mobilisation des connaissances. And I think I put the link to the knowledge mobilization strategy in the PowerPoint, so when we share it, you guys can go and see it. So the strategy aims to offer the support needed by UOttawa's research community to mobilize and increase the impact of their research. With this strategy, we hope to support professors, research associates, students, and postdoctoral fellows, but also external knowledge users, research administrators, communication staff, and other external organizations, like, for example, Research Impact Canada. So just so you know, Research Impact Canada is a pan-Canadian network of universities with devoted resources toward the support of knowledge mobilization. So as a member of Research Impact Canada, we benefit from their training opportunities, and we contribute by sharing our experience and resources with all the members. So, les objectifs de la stratégie sont les suivants. Le premier objectif, c'est de développer les connaissances et les compétences de base en mobilisation des connaissances. Le deuxième objectif, c'est de promouvoir la culture en soutenant et en récompensant la mobilisation des connaissances. Le troisième objectif, c'est de mobiliser les utilisateurs des connaissances en favorisant l'établissement de partenariats entre les utilisateurs de connaissances et le milieu de la recherche de l'Université d'Ottawa. Et enfin, le quatrième objectif, c'est d'évaluer les résultats et générer un impact en appuyant l'évaluation de l'impact de la recherche. Donc, pour répondre à ces objectifs, on a commencé à mettre en place des activités, puis à identifier des ressources qui sont disponibles. En premier lieu, on offre des formations comme celle d'aujourd'hui. On a aussi une page web qui est remplie de ressources et d'outils. On fait la promotion aussi d'autres opportunités de formation en matière de mobilisation des connaissances dans un bulletin hebdomadaire. On offre aussi des consultations. On participe à des discussions, des initiatives qui favorisent le renforcement des capacités en mobilisation des connaissances. On offre aussi des opportunités de financement et de reconnaissance aux chercheurs et nous supportons d'autres initiatives de reconnaissance comme celle de la bourse de recherche engagée du réseau Impact Recherche, which is Research Impact Canada in French. On offre aussi des conseils et des activités pour le réseautage et des événements pour favoriser les échanges et le développement de partenariats entre les chercheurs et les utilisateurs de connaissances. Puis enfin, on offre aussi des conseils sur l'évaluation de l'impact de la recherche et on contribue au développement du domaine de la recherche sur la mobilisation des connaissances. So next, I want to provide you with a few tips on how to include knowledge mobilization in your academic path or academic career path. So the first tip that I want to share is it's all about connections and relationships. So connect with the people who are interested in your topic, of course, with kindness and openness. You may want to use social media like LinkedIn or Twitter to build your profile, follow people. You never know, they might follow you back. My experience is that when you say to people that, you're interested in their work, all that can come out of it is mostly positive, and you build relationships by doing that. Also, it takes time and resources to do knowledge mobilization, so don't hesitate to apply to scholarships and grants, prizes, and awards. It also requires skills, so take workshops and training, try new things. Also concentrate on your strengths, because you can't do everything. So, if you have some skills in, creating videos, you might want to focus on that. But if you have skills in other things, and it's easy for you to do something, probably should focus on that. Plan for it. So if you don't plan for change, it won't happen. So that's why, knowledge mobilization planning is really important. Give access to your publications and research products using online repositories like the UO Research platform, for example, or other open access platforms. And then most importantly, keep track of everything in your CV. Make space for knowledge mobilization activities in your CV, for knowledge user engagement, and also for impact stories. Now, how to plan for knowledge mobilization. S'il y a une chose que je veux que vous reteniez aujourd'hui, c'est que si vous souhaitez que votre recherche change quelque chose, il faut que vous planifiez ce changement. Pour ça, il existe plusieurs outils et gabarits comme la trousse MDC du Centre d'excellence de l'Ontario sur la santé mentale des enfants et des adolescents, ou le KT Planning Template de l'hôpital Sick Kids. En général, ces ressources se ressemblent dans le contenu, mais sont différents dans le format. Aujourd'hui, je vais vous faire un bref aperçu des étapes à suivre pour bien planifier vos activités de mobilisation des connaissances. Donc, les deux premières étapes sont les plus importantes. C'est de bien identifier vos partenaires, leur rôle et leur engagement dans votre recherche, et la même chose pour vos utilisateurs de connaissances. Ce sont les étapes les plus importantes parce que les stratégies que vous choisirez doivent être adaptées aux besoins et aux habitudes de vos utilisateurs de connaissances. Ensuite, il est important d'identifier les messages ou les résultats importants que vous voulez partager avec eux, ainsi que les objectifs de mobilisation des connaissances que vous voulez atteindre. Le message important découle des résultats de la recherche. Il s'agit d'un résumé de l'information pertinente que vous souhaitez que les utilisateurs de connaissances retiennent de votre recherche. Et les objectifs, c'est ce que vous voulez changer avec votre recherche. Ce n'est que lorsque vous aurez déterminé vos utilisateurs de connaissances, vos messages et vos objectifs de mobilisation des connaissances que vous pourrez commencer à penser aux activités ou aux stratégies à mettre en place. Les activités choisies doivent être adaptées aux besoins des utilisateurs de connaissances et alignées à vos objectifs de mobilisation des connaissances. Ça, je ne le dirai jamais assez parce qu'une des choses qu'on a tendance à faire, c'est de faire le contraire. C'est de dire « Ah, c'est in de faire... d'utiliser les médias sociaux » ou « Ah, c'est in de faire des vidéos, je vais faire ça », sans qu'on se pose la question à savoir est-ce que c'est vraiment la meilleure stratégie pour le groupe que vous souhaitez rejoindre. Pardon. Donc, lorsque vous aurez déterminé les activités, il est important d'identifier les façons que vous allez monitorer les réalisations, les changements ou les impacts que vos activités auront eu sur vos utilisateurs de connaissances. Et enfin, si vous voulez vous assurer que votre plan est réalisable en pensant d'avance aux ressources nécessaires pour l'exécuter. So that was a brief overview. Now I'm going to go a bit more deeper in each of the sections, but maybe I think I had questions for later, but if there's already some things on the chat, can anybody tell me if there's any questions on the chat?
There are no questions just yet, Marie-Ève, juste des commentaires.
Okay, parfait. Any comments that I need to know about?
I shared my experience with social media.
Okay, perfect. All right. So the purpose of the first step of identifying your partners will help you determine whether you are engaging in a research co-creation approach or a dissemination approach that we've talked about earlier. So having partners involved throughout your research process may help you to learn about your knowledge users' habits for information consumption and behavior change, and allow you to better adapt your strategies. Here I've included a list of examples of partners. So you have researchers, practitioners, public services, consumers, media, decision makers, government decision makers, industry, professional association. Of course, all of those are just, it's not an exhaustive list, but it can help you see different categories of partners and maybe broaden your horizons. Ideally, it's easier to leverage existing relationships, but you shouldn't be afraid to knock on doors to explore new relationships. And once you know who your partners are, organize a meeting with them at the planning stage to discuss their needs, their roles, and their level of engagement. And maybe, it's not to say that you absolutely need to have your partners. So, you might want to just have knowledge users involved for the, at the end of your project, and it's okay. It's just that if you do want to have partners, I think the recommendation is to having them involved as early as possible.
Before you continue, Maria,
yeah.
There is a question in the chat that perhaps you can answer or point us towards our resource for. The UO research platform that you mentioned, is that just include publication opportunities for like a thesis and dissertations, or can other publications be posted there as well?
Any publication can be posted there. Yeah, as long as, well, if you do publish like in a journal, and there's like how do you say, a certain time that you can't publish anywhere else, but at some point I think if it's open access, you can actually put it anywhere, and this repository can be used for that.
So yeah, quand même avoir des liens à l'article ou la référence bibliographique à l'article sur UO research.
Yeah, and I would strongly suggest that if you're not sure if you can and how to do it, contact the library person, Janet AVRIL, and she'll for sure help you to do that. So let's, for example, we kind of just did a homemade, strategy for U Ottawa, and I've put it on there. We have tools that I've put on there, and they're not like, they're just knowledge mobilization products kind of thing, but it's a way that it can be accessible to anyone who goes into that searching tool. Yeah.
C'est parfait, merci.
All right, so ça se peut qu'il y ait un chevauchement entre vos partenaires et vos utilisateurs de connaissances. Juste pour faire la différence, les utilisateurs de connaissances peuvent être des partenaires s'ils s'engagent avec vous dans le processus de recherche, mais ils ne sont pas obligés de l'être. Donc, l'exercice d'identifier les utilisateurs de connaissances, ça peut être plus exhaustif que les partenaires. Par exemple, un partenaire peut être un organisme communautaire avec lequel vous faites affaire, mais un utilisateur de connaissances, ça peut être un usager de cet organisme-là, puis cette personne-là, cet usager-là sera peut-être celui qui va bénéficier des résultats, mais il ne va pas nécessairement participer. Donc, c'est ça un peu la différence entre un partenaire puis un utilisateur de connaissances. Donc, les questions à se poser pour identifier, une fois que tu as identifié tes utilisateurs de connaissances, c'est quel groupe pourrait bénéficier des résultats et pourquoi, puis quels sont les meilleurs moyens de les rejoindre, de quelle manière consomment-ils l'information, puis les réponses à ces questions-là vont orienter vos décisions dans les prochaines étapes. Is there any other question? I see like a little light, I think, like popping.
Yes, there are additional questions about UO research, but if you'd like, Marie-Ève, we can hold them until the end if you'd like to keep going, or we can ask them now. It's up to you.
Perfect. Yeah, maybe we can hold them.
Okay.
All right, so once you know what group of people you're targeting and why, and the best ways to engage with them, you have to ask yourself two things. What results or expected results of my research or main messages do they need to know? And once you've identified that, you can ask yourself, what do you want to achieve with your research and knowledge mobilization activities? So, I've provided some examples of goals. So some of the answers can be, I only want to advance knowledge in my research discipline. I want to inform, share, or raise awareness around my research results and recommendations. I want to promote a change of attitude, change people's mind about something. I want to mobilize people, create engagement around my research results. I want to influence change in decisions, policies, or defend a position. I want to promote changes in practices or behaviors, or I want to commercialize something or make an innovation out of something. So this is an important step also because it will guide your choice of activities, since you can't really use the same strategy whether you want to raise awareness or whether you want to influence change. And that's the reason why I'm talking so much. And you might think I'm talking too much about the importance of aligning your strategies with your goals and your messages and your knowledge users. So, ici, je vais vous donner quelques exemples de types d'activités selon vos objectifs de mobilisation des connaissances. Donc, si vous souhaitez uniquement faire avancer la science, vous allez probablement choisir des activités traditionnelles de publication dans les revues, les livres ou encore les conférences. Et de plus en plus, les médias sociaux comme Twitter et LinkedIn sont aussi des bons moyens de partager les articles ou les publications aux autres chercheurs dans votre domaine. Mais c'est seulement si vous avez construit votre profil et que vous suivez vos collègues et autres chercheurs influents dans votre domaine. Par contre, si vous souhaitez influencer un changement ou créer un engagement, vous voudrez probablement utiliser des stratégies plus interactives comme des consultations publiques, des comités, faire des ateliers, des formations, des événements où les gens ont la chance de partager entre eux. Avec donc des rencontres qui facilitent un échange entre les utilisateurs de connaissances et les chercheurs. Encore une fois, ici, ce n'est pas une liste exhaustive, là. Il n'y a pas toutes les stratégies qui existent. Ça vous donne seulement une idée des différents types d'activités qu'on peut voir selon les différents objectifs. Puis je vais le répéter encore, c'est vraiment important qu'il y ait un alignement entre les habitudes et les besoins de vos utilisateurs de connaissances, ce que vous souhaitez changer, puis les stratégies que vous allez choisir. Alors, la prochaine étape, et c'est probablement celle que les gens oublient le plus et à laquelle on accorde le moins d'importance, mais j'espère aujourd'hui réussir à vous convaincre de son importance. Donc, plutôt vous avez identifié vos objectifs de mobilisation des connaissances et la prochaine étape, c'est d'identifier les moyens de démontrer si vous avez atteint ces objectifs-là. Donc, tout au long de votre carrière, vous voudrez être capable de raconter les changements que vos activités de mobilisation de connaissances et votre recherche auront eu sur vos utilisateurs de connaissances. Mais si vous ne les identifiez pas, ces indicateurs de changement-là, et si vous ne mettez pas rien en place pour les monitorer, ben, vous ne pourrez jamais faire cette démonstration-là. So I encourage you to start thinking or asking yourself questions about the type of indicators of research impact that you would want to monitor throughout your career. Alors, voulez-vous mesurer la portée de vos activités, le nombre de personnes rejointes, le nombre de publications, le nombre de requêtes ou de téléchargements, les impressions sur les médias sociaux, etc. Donc, si votre objectif, c'est de faire avancer la science ou changer les attitudes, vous voudrez probablement utiliser quelques-uns de ces indicateurs-là. And Web Analytics and Bibliometrics will help you do that. Si vous voulez mesurer l'utilité de vos activités à travers des indicateurs du niveau de connaissance, du taux de satisfaction, du nombre de fois que vos produits ont été lus, here, for those types of indicators, you may want to use surveys or monitor your bibliometrics and web analytics as well. Si vous voulez savoir comment vos produits ou l'information circulée a été utilisée, si vos utilisateurs de connaissances ont l'intention de l'utiliser, Vous pouvez monitorer le nombre de citations de vos produits, un retour après auprès de vos utilisateurs de connaissances à l'aide d'un sondage ou d'un témoignage pourrait vous permettre de faire cette démonstration. Puis pour les activités plus interactives, il vous faudra prévoir des indicateurs pour mesurer la qualité ou le développement de collaboration ou de partenariat ou le changement de comportement. Ça peut être un peu plus compliqué, mais ça peut se faire encore en utilisant des questionnaires, en trouvant des données disponibles sur Internet, de la documentation accessible, en demandant du feedback de vos partenaires, en faisant des entrevues, ce genre de choses-là. Jen, you'll let me know if there's any questions regarding what we're talking about, so I can maybe answer right now, but if not, then it's almost there for questions.
I think we're okay to keep going for the moment.
Okay. So the last two steps are about making sure that you can execute your KMB plan. So in this step, you need to think about all of the different resources you could need to execute your knowledge mobilization activities. Some of those resources could be that to have like a governance or a committee structure to guide you. It can also mean financial resources to pay for some of your incurred expenses. It could mean hiring staff or technical or professional expertise. It can mean maybe having some technology, software, or applications to help you, or also, counting on institutional support or some kind of in-kind support. And so, lorsque vous aurez déterminé les ressources nécessaires, vous pourrez faire une estimation du budget dont vous allez avoir besoin. Rappelez-vous que certaines activités de mobilisation des connaissances peuvent être dispendieuses. Par exemple, si vous payez le salaire de professionnel de graphisme ou de visualisation. Il faut penser aussi aux frais de publication en libre accès, du développement d'un site web, tout ça, ça peut quand même être dispendieux, mais c'est important d'être au courant de ces coûts-là avant de décider que vous allez le faire pour être certain que vous allez avoir les ressources et que vous allez être capable de vraiment exécuter vos activités. Okay, so my final 5 tips. Again, you might think I'm repeating myself, but I want to share those 5 really important things to remember from this presentation. First is to create or choose knowledge mobilization products or activities in line with your knowledge users' needs, ideally in collaboration with them. Try to plan for a variety of ways to share your knowledge, including ways to evaluate how your knowledge is used. So there's research that showed or demonstrated that when you're doing knowledge mobilization, if you do have a variety of ways, it's mostly more impactful than to use only one for the same knowledge user group, for example. Take the time to determine the role and responsibilities of your partners and knowledge users from the beginning. Again, if it's applicable, because like I said, you might not have partners for your project and it's okay. Demonstrate that you have the resources and institutional support to execute your plan, and then know about U Ottawa's resources like the open access online repository that I talked about, U Research, or other services that can help you out like IT, TLSS, Congress and Reservation, media relations, your own research office, and also the U Ottawa Research Connections Unit, which is me. So this is just a list of the resources I mentioned during the presentation. One resource I didn't mention is the KMB plan checklist we developed. So this checklist can be used before submitting an application to SSHRC and CIHR to help you verify if you have addressed all of the KMB components we just talked about in your proposal. So let me just see if I'll end my show. And I'll try to share with you one of the checklists so you can see what it looks like. Oh, just a second, bear with me. Can you see this? So it's just an interactive PDF file.
It's not up yet on the screen, Maria.
No?
No.
Oh, sorry. Share. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just a checklist. So you have, what knowledge mobilization is, what you can do with this checklist. And then all you have is just a few pointers like around knowledge mobilization for your summary page, your methodological approach, your timeline, role and responsibilities of description of your partners, student training and mentoring. And then for the knowledge mobilization plan, it mostly, relates to all of the different steps that we just talked about, and then the budget and also your CV. So it's just, the reason why I did this is I want students and researchers to remember that knowledge mobilization is not just in the knowledge mobilization plan. You have to address it in other places in your application, in your CV, for example, your budget, and other. So, this can be like a checklist once either you use it before you start writing, so you can kind of think about these things beforehand, or you can use it once you've kind of finalized your application or your proposal to kind of see if you've addressed everything at the right place, for example. So, these links are going to be on the PowerPoint. Let me share back my slide deck. Are we okay in time?
Yep, it's a quarter to one.
Okay. And also I've put the link to the templates that I mentioned, the one from the Center of Excellence for Child and Youth Mental Health, and also the Children's Hospital. All right, so I don't know if there's two things. I've also have a few examples of research impact using knowledge mobilization that I can share, or we can go ahead and ask and answer questions right now. And if we have time, I can go, I would actually prefer we go with the questions now. And if we have time, then I can share the other things.
That sounds great. Marielle, so maybe I can ask one of the questions that's in the chat. Gabriella has asked if the research added to the UL repository that you were talking about, if it's added and actively shared. And Gabriella, I'm not sure if I'm capturing that right. Do you mean as researchers post their research, is it actively shared, or the research that's being posted on the network itself?
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, I mean, aside from our research living in that repository, like, is there an actual, like an active effort on the part of the team at your research to then help spread that, whatever is posted in that repository?
So I know that the library made a lot of efforts to make sure that these things that are in the UO research repository are findable in Google. So if you normally, like when I try to find my things, it pops up in Google. So I think it's, if you have the right keywords and stuff included in your profile of the UO research, I think it's findable. But you're right that unless you make your publication or link, if you send it to communications people or like at the university, I don't think there is going to be any efforts to make it available. I think it's the responsibility of the researcher or the author to make that more visible. But you can use the link from your research to put it on, your social media or any emails or anything. And then what's interested with your research is there's statistics of the views and the reads. It's included in on the platform, so you can actually see in a live matter how many people are actually downloading and viewing and reading your publication, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Anyone else?
There were no other questions in the chat right now. I'm wondering if now that we're officially into the Q&A session, if there are additional questions, you can use the raise hand function to ask them. You're welcome to use the chat box as well. Alors, si vous avez d'autres questions et vous n'avez pas eu une chance de les poser, vous pouvez soit parler à haute voix ou sinon vous pouvez les poser dans le chat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know if I would just butt everyone. I have on my iPad, so I can't see everyone. I hope no one else had their hand up. So Marie-Ève, I was wondering if you see, so I think, sorry, this is not very eloquent at all. So I think it's really important to be doing knowledge mobilization, especially projects that can kind of utilize integrated knowledge mobilization so that we know that the research will definitely kind of have a direct impact on the community, et cetera. However, when you did show the budget page, I was reminded that for grad students, this is really hard because even if they do apply to SHRC or OGS, they're not actually eligible for research funds. They are getting funding for their own salary, but they don't actually have money to do this research. Do you think that the university, or is there any programs available now where, say, a PhD student or a master's student could apply for a small grant to do this, to help them do this kind of research in the event that they're not working on something larger that their supervisors are already doing? Because if I think of just the students that are on this call now, I know a few of them have some community partners and aren't really in a position to be able to pay for things. And it would be great if the university is serious about this to have those kind of supports in place. So I guess it's more of a plug to ask.
Yeah,
that.
so I'm really glad that you're asking that. Right now, there is none, and I'm taking notes that it might be a need that we can think about. The one thing that I know is that Research Impact Canada, which we are a member of, have what they call an engaged scholarship bursary, or it's not an engaged scholarship, but anyways, I don't remember the exact title. It should be a yearly thing. So for the people who actually are doing engaged research, they are offering, I think it's not a lot of money. It's like maybe $1,500 to
That's
do.
Better than nothing.
And you know, there's recognition to CARA conference and things like that goes with it. And so we've published this year, and we'll continue to promote it every time it opens up. But I'll for sure keep that in mind. And if we don't have anything internally, I can always keep track of things that are external that might have help, and also promote it as much as possible.
Because I'm just looking, I don't know if there's a way to just show of hands of who's here, like who would apply to something like that? Like, I know for me, when I was doing my PhD research, I was working with coaches, and it would have been really helpful to be able to just compensate them for their time to even participate in my research. Like, that would have just helped a lot. So I don't know if there's like a show of hands of how many, just to give you an idea, Maria, for your.
I would love that.
There's a couple thumbs up that happened when you asked that question, Meredith, and Eliza has asked or kind of supplemented this. So the Faculty of Arts, for which I think the majority of the students that are on this call are part of, does have a student experience fund. They usually send out a call for applicants a couple times per year, and there are specific guidelines about what the Student Experience Fund supports initiatives that are group organized, so associations like the CGSA, as well as individuals. So I think that could be a potential source, and I would encourage students on this call to review the guidelines for the Faculty of Arts Students Experience Fund to see if your project could be covered at least in part, and if that operates on a reimbursement basis.
So if I can just say, I'm going to make a plug that I didn't really mention throughout the presentation, but we are in the midst of doing a research project that's called the IRIS project, which is kind of doing interviews and and focus groups around campus to really understand what knowledge mobilization is about for folks and what the university could do to support it better. We've actually had a hard time to recruit participants for these focus groups, but graduate students are people that we want to target. And I would personally say that and also researchers for focus groups are going to happen. So, those things about we need more support and financial support for students to do knowledge mobilization are things that should appear in there. So, because that's going to go directly to the decision makers at the university. So just me knowing about it is not going to change something.
Okay.
So
I guess
an idea.
A focus group, we can definitely share it among our group here, and I'm sure I'll participate now. Now I will anyway.
There are a couple other raised hands, so perhaps we can take some additional questions, Marie-Ève, if that's okay with you.
Yep. Sure.
So next question, Rashidata, you had your hand up. You've had your hand up for a while.
Yes. Bon, je vais parler en français parce que je ne suis pas trop en anglais.
Oui,
c'est bien.
Merci beaucoup, Maria, pour cette très belle présentation. En fait, bizarrement, je suis en train de mettre en place un projet de ce type, mais ça concerne plus une idée de collaboration avec l'Université d'Ottawa. J'ai cherché dans cette optique parce que pour l'Afrique, on a des jeunes qui recherchent un peu, qui sont dans la recherche, qui n'ont pas de ressources. Et mon idée, c'était de les mettre en collaboration avec des chercheurs qui, nous étant étudiants ici à l'Université d'Ottawa, souvent on a des intentions de mener des recherches dans un contexte africain, mais on n'a pas de ressources. Donc, cette idée de les mettre en collaboration pour résoudre en fait, le problème, pour résoudre en fait, la question. Alors, mon projet, c'était un peu ça, mais j'ai cherché à trouver des réponses au niveau du département pour savoir comment procéder pour un partenariat ou bien pour une assistance, mais je n'ai pas trouvé de réponse. Et même l'association des étudiants, j'ai envoyé un email, mais je n'ai pas aussi reçu de réponse. Alors, j'aimerais savoir comment procéder parce que je suis très intéressée par cette question et savoir comment on pourra m'aider dans ce sens.
Écoute, ça fait partie de mon mandat d'essayer d'aider les étudiants et les chercheurs à établir des nouvelles collaborations pour des projets. Donc, je te dirais, écris-moi un courriel avec un peu les détails, tout ça, puis je verrai. C'est sûr que là, juste à t'entendre parler, j'ai des idées. Là, on pourrait essayer de voir s'il y a des collaborations possibles avec le bureau de la recherche internationale, qui est au niveau du cabinet du vice-rectorat à la recherche. On pourrait aussi voir avec le nouveau vice-président à la francophonie et à l'international. Donc, il y a comme des entités à l'université qui seraient peut-être intéressées à entendre ton projet. Donc, je pourrais t'aider à peut-être identifier ces gens-là, ces services-là, puis t'aider à même convoquer des rencontres ou à écrire tes messages Donc, on pourra voir là, quel genre d'aide, quel genre de soutien tu aurais besoin, mais c'est les idées qui me viennent à l'esprit pour l'instant.
D'accord. Je pourrais avoir votre mail?
Je pourrais l'envoyer directement dans le chat, Rachidata.
Oui, ça va être aussi... il y a mon nom, Marie-Ève Trédignon, donc marie-ève.girard@uottawa.ca. Aussi, connect@uottawa.ca, c'est l'autre email qu'on peut utiliser pour me rejoindre.
D'accord, merci beaucoup.
We have another question, Gabriella.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to know if there's any possibility of, for example, if you're a graduate student, like after you complete your thesis, then you're going to work on a knowledge mobilization strategy, but then you're going to be graduated from UOttawa. Is there a way that you can access something, even if you're not going to complete that knowledge mobilization? Say, like if you wanted to do a podcast, for example, you can't produce that before you finish and you're doing all your stuff. Like it's not going to happen while you're still a student, right?
Yeah.
So is there any, like how does that work? or is there any envisioning of how that will work eventually?
It's a good question. So I'm not necessarily that much familiar with what happens after you graduate, but I know that the university has an alumni group, like faculties have alumni groups, and I think there's a overarching alumni service, and they have like the You Ought to Know podcast. So, you know, maybe there's collaborations with them to do, like if you want not necessarily your own podcast, but you want to have the chance to do some kind of podcast like interview around your research. I mean, they're already all connected throughout the world and things like that. So, you know, that might be something, but I you know, I've started to develop some relationships with these alumni agents, or but I haven't necessarily thought through as to or ask what's possible for alumni. But you know, for example, the question I'm asking is like, can you still have access to your research if you're an alumni? Like I don't know the answer to that, but maybe it's maybe yes, but maybe not. So that's the good questions. I'll keep that in mind. And maybe that's something for the future to make sure that once you graduate, you could maybe still have some kind of support.
Thank you.
But I would encourage you to reach out to your alumni group afterwards, like to maybe start having those discussions, and maybe, you know, if you want to them to reach out to me or make that connection, I'm interested.
It's a good idea. Yeah, thanks.
So it's now 1 p.m. On est déjà à 1 heure. Je ne sais pas, Marie-Ève, si vous avez quelques minutes supplémentaires, s'il y a des questions qui restent.
Ouais, non, mais moi, je m'étais mis jusqu'à 1h30 là, donc j'ai pas de problème là, pour répondre à d'autres questions. Mais avant, mais je peux aussi, je ne sais pas si les gens sont intéressés de voir les Research Impact stories that I had prepared.
I don't see any other questions right now. Rachidata, your hand is still raised. Alors, votre main est encore levée. Je ne sais pas si vous avez d'autres questions pour Marie-Ève ou... Okay. I don't see any other questions coming in, Marie-Ève, so it's entirely up to you how you prefer to proceed.
Seems like some people have to go. So I think what I want to do is just share with you the link to my survey.
Okay.
So I'll try to put it in the chat. Is that the one? Just a second. Where is the chat? I'm like, oh, there's too many screens.
It should be at the bottom. There should be.
I think I'll stop sharing my screen, and now it's easier. Okay. So one thing that I wanted to tell you is that I'm not just you know, preaching about research impact assessment. I'm gonna ask you to actually, you know, fill out a little satisfaction or survey, really short, 4 questions, just to let me, you know, so that I know whether this presentation was useful, what it's changing for you, and so that we can use that information to improve, you know, the next time that we do it. Yeah, so I think if you could do that, that would be really great. And just I can share with you just 2 seconds the screen, so that will be also in the slides, but you have the Connect at U Ottawa and the link to the Knowledge Mobilization Institutional Strategy. Oh, I didn't share it. Sorry. Right, there you go. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So I think that's it for me. Was there any other questions?
No, there are no additional questions. Perhaps I can pass it over to Meredith to close the session officially.
All right. So thank you very much for the presentation today. I was a little bit late joining because I taught at 11:30, but I definitely, from what I caught at the end, I think that there's it looks like there's going to be increasingly more resources available. And kind of, I guess, a plug for everyone who's here. If you follow the principles of knowledge mobilization properly and, follow those check marks and all those things and the list and the resources they have, it actually makes your research more publishable. So if you're interested, not only kind of in making sure that the research gets out to kind of all the other audiences and the people who need it, it can also make your methodology more sound and more credible in terms of getting those research publications too. So I think this is really important to be thinking about. And I mentioned it in the chat, but if you're working on your proposal, that checklist is super helpful for putting together your thesis proposal and making sure you have all those things already kind of outlined in the planning phase, not just for grants, but for your actual thesis as well. So that, I wish I had that when I was writing my proposal. It would be very helpful. So anyway, thank you for taking the time to do this, Marie-Ève.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you think that the checklist can be useful for, I've never actually thought that it could be useful for a thesis, and so I'm glad.
Et j'ajouterais aussi que Marie-Ève est très active sur les réseaux sociaux. Alors, comme moi, je vous suis sur Twitter, mais je sais que vous êtes toujours en train de mettre de l'information concernant la mobilisation des connaissances en ligne. Alors,
yeah, I should put my LinkedIn and my Twitter account on my last slide. I forgot about that. See, I'm still learning.
I'd encourage everyone to follow Marie-Ève on Twitter for some really great updates on what's happening with KMB, KTE, or en français MDC online.
Yeah, and also if you are publishing or if you want to, share your own research on there and you just tag me, then I'll be sure to share it more widely. Yeah.
Alors, je vais fermer l'enregistrement, mais je sais qu'il y a encore des mains levées. Alors, merci beaucoup à Marie-Ève, Gérard encore. Thank you, Meredith, for all of your support this year in organizing these graduate student workshops. You've really demonstrated the level of support that our department provides to graduate students. Alors, merci à vous deux et merci à tout le monde pour assister aujourd'hui.